Da Vinci, Kooning, Cézanne, Gauguin, Pollock, Klimt, Rothko, Warhol, Rembrandt, and Picasso. These are the artists of the top 10 most expensive paintings in art history. Can you guess what they have in common? You guessed it, they're all men. Hi, my name is Bibiana Lee, an aspiring art historian and a current student here at ISW. Today, I'll be looking at the reasons for this misrepresentation and underrepresentation of female artists in the art world. To give you a sense of how gender skewed the art world is, why don't we look at some statistics. Of the $196 billion raised in art auctions in the last decade, only $4 billion was raised by females. That is to say, 2%. What is even more striking is that of those 2%, half was raised just by 5 female artists. Even in the most renowned museums and galleries like the Metropolitan Museum or the Louvre, over 85% of their exhibited artworks are solely created by men. Now, given that 63% of undergrads and 66% of postgrad students in creative arts and design are female, these statistics seem outdated and wrong. Why, then, are there so few female artists? Now, before I do a deep dive into my whole art history lecture, you might be wondering to yourselves, why am I here? Why am I sitting here listening to this self-proclaimed art historian and really a high schooler talk about art history that I don't care about? Yes, the humanity will not go extinct if art disappears tomorrow. And no, we do not talk about sexism in the art world as often as we do global warming or human rights violations. However, it is important that we recognize the significance this gender bias has on the art world. Art, as the epitome of human creative endeavors, should be kept open for everyone, regardless of population and gender. Now, going back to my art history lecture, just like so many other inequalities in our society, art history has sexism in the art world has a very long history. Men or male artists were put on a pedestal, and this gender bias colluded against female artists being able to pursue any artistic trainings or pursue any artistic pathways. From the 16th century to the 19th century, women were strictly prohibited from entering any artistic institutions and pursuing any studies of nude models, considering that was the times when Renaissance prevailed and its central theme being around religious motifs and inevitable human figure depictions. It is quite evident that art was not something all that accessible or welcoming to female artists. It was until 1860 when the first woman was admitted to the Royal Academy of Art in London. It was something accidental when Laura Hertford submitted her works under her name LH, or her initials. This shows that it is not the mastery or the craftsmanship of the artworks of those female artists, it's the provenance, it's the label woman that stopped those female artists from entering the art world. Even to this day, name recognition and name value is something central to monetization of artworks and artists. Yet, this criteria is extremely biased towards men because female artists never got recognition. This exclusion of female artists from artistic training inevitably led to exclusions from artistic movements like the Renaissance or Bauhaus. Yes, women were admitted to Bauhaus, and the creator even said there is no difference between the beautiful and the strong sex. However, when you look at it more closely, it is quite evident that women, or those female artists in Bauhaus, were strictly marginalized to creating tapestries and tablewares. Traditionally, those works that we consider as artworks now were not considered artistic. They were considered decorative or crafty. It was women's job to create those decorative pieces, and those decorative pieces were all that women could create. Even when women did work with more traditionally artistic mediums like oil paint, the legacies and the longevity of their artworks were not assured. Galleries and collectors did not see value in preserving and keeping their artworks. There was a historical effacement of female artists and their artworks from the history and collections. And it is important that we recognize the value and the significance in this gender imbalance, because museums with outposts all around the world are global tastemakers. They champion artists, funding their artworks, and introduce them to the most wealthiest collectors all around the world. Their exhibitions, whether it be temporary or permanent, shape the history of art. And yet, those museums own such a miserable number of female artists and their paintings. This all has a very close relationship to the treatment of female artists as individuals. They were labeled as the partner of, the lover of, the muse of. Their integrity, their mastery, and their craftsmanship was underplayed, omitted, and neglected. This all now has a very consequential knock-on effect on our contemporary audience and on the art market. In a way, there is such a lack of number of artworks that museums and galleries can acquire from female artists. Inherently and historically, exhibitions and galleries do not own enough artworks from the female artists, thus they cannot put on any exhibitions of featuring those female artists. This lack of representation results in lack of opportunity for those female artists, and this lack of opportunity means there will be no paintings or artworks by female artists on the art market, acquirable by those museums and galleries. We could say it is a cycle that is inherited, systematic, institutionally embedded, and historical. New decade, we ask ourselves, are things finally changing? Things are minute, but they are definitely changing. The newer, more younger museums and galleries are making efforts to voice the perspectives and ideas of those female artists. There are visibly an increase in number of female artists and women on the senior positions in museums and galleries, like the executive curator. There are, of course, inevitably a lot of female artists that are recognized worldwide, like Yayoi Kusama or Kara Walker, who are demonstrating transformative power of art and expression. Yet, it is a shame that it is now hindsight that we recognize the value and the talents of those female artists. It is possible to create new history. It is possible to bring new changes to what is ahead of us. It is highly difficult to change what has been institutionally set in place. Though, there is hope. As we embody the spirit of breaking barriers, and as we strive for a more inclusive and equitable future, may our collective efforts resonate in museums, galleries, and studios worldwide. Thank you.